The desert sun had barely begun to rise when the silence of the western plains was broken by the distant cry of a hawk. A lone rider, hat pulled low over his eyes, urged his chestnut horse across the dry, cracked earth. Dust swirled behind him, catching the faint morning light. His name was Ethan Cole, a cowboy with a scarred past, a man who had seen too much blood on the frontier to ever believe in peace again. But this morning something was different. The air carried a strange weight, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Ethan had no way of knowing that within hours he would find himself in the middle of a story that would shake his soul, test his courage, and change his life forever. The river cut through the canyon like a silver blade. Ethan had come here for water, but as he approached the rocky edge, he froze. A sound echoed, not the flow of water, not the cry of an animal, but something desperate. A scream. His horse shied back, but Ethan leapt down, eyes scanning the river. That's when he saw her. A young woman, struggling against the current, her dark hair tangled in the rushing water. Her arms flailed, her face dipped under, and when she surfaced again, he caught the terror in her eyes. She wasn't just anyone. Her clothing, her beaded necklace, the painted symbols across her wrist. She was Apache. "Hold on," Ethan shouted, tossing aside his hat. Without a second thought, he dove into the water. The river was freezing, the current violent, pulling at him like hands of the dead. He fought his way toward her, lungs burning, arms straining. Her head dipped beneath again. Panic surged in his chest. He wasn't about to let her drown. Not today, not under his watch. He grabbed her arm just as she was slipping under. She clawed at him, half-conscious, coughing, choking. The current slammed them both against jagged rocks, tearing at skin and clothes. But Ethan held tight. He pulled her against his chest, kicking furiously, dragging them toward the shallows. By the time he hauled her onto the riverbank, his chest heaved with exhaustion. The girl lay sprawled on the dirt, her lips pale, her body trembling. Ethan leaned over her, pressing his ear to her lips. She was barely breathing. "Come on, damn it, breathe," he muttered, pounding her back gently. Then she coughed, sputtering up river water, gasping for air. Her eyes opened. Dark, fierce, but filled with confusion. For a moment, she stared at him as if he were some phantom pulled from the mist. "You're safe," Ethan said softly. But her gaze hardened. She tried to push away, though too weak to rise. Why would a white cowboy save me?" Her voice was raspy, but sharp. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't know himself. All he knew was that when he saw her drowning, something deep inside him refused to let her go. The girl turned her head, staring at the sky, whispering words in Apache. Ethan caught only fragments, but the tone chilled him. She had been running from something dangerous. And saving her meant Ethan had just stepped into the middle of a storm. Night had fallen over the canyon. A small fire flickered, casting shadows across Ethan's face as he watched the girl sleep, wrapped in his coat. Her breathing was steadier now, but her body still trembled from cold and exhaustion. Ethan leaned back against a rock, his mind racing. He had no plan. Cowboys didn't mix with Apache tribes. Not in 2025, not ever. The tension between settlers, outlaws, and native tribes still boiled under the surface, and a man could get himself killed just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there was something about her that wouldn't let him walk away. When morning came, she stirred. Her eyes, sharp even in weakness, locked on him. "You shouldn't have saved me." Ethan frowned. What the hell does that mean? She sat up slowly, wincing at the bruises on her arms. "My name is Ayoka. I belong to the White Mountain Apache. Men are hunting me. If they find you with me, you'll die too." Ethan's jaw tightened. He had heard of White Mountain Apache, fierce warriors, guardians of their land. But who was hunting her? Why was she alone? "You think I scare easy?" he asked, voice steady. Her gaze softened for the first time. "You don't understand. It's not just outlaws, it's men from my own blood." Over the next hours, fragments of her story spilled like drops of poison. Ayoka had been promised to a tribal war chief she did not love, a man who sought to unite tribes through fear and bloodshed. But she had refused. On the night of the ceremony, she fled. Warriors gave chase. She ran through forests, across ridges, until the river swallowed her escape. "And now," she whispered, "I carry both freedom and death upon me." Ethan listened, silent. Something inside him stirred. Anger at the thought of a girl forced into chains, admiration at the fire in her voice, and fear at what her presence meant for him. "Then we ride," Ethan said finally. "I'll get you out of here." Her eyes widened. "Why, you owe me nothing." Ethan's gaze turned distant. "Once I failed to save someone, I swore I'd never make that mistake again." The days that followed were a blur of danger. They rode across barren plains, through ghost towns and narrow passes. At night they camped under stars, their conversations slowly peeling away the walls between them. Ethan learned she was not just beautiful. She was fierce, intelligent, and unafraid to challenge him. One evening, as the firelight danced in her eyes, Ahyoka asked, "Do you believe two worlds can ever belong together? Cowboy and Apache?" Ethan hesitated, the silence heavy. "I believe hearts don't know borders, but the world around them did." Gunshots cracked one dawn, shattering the fragile peace. Warriors had found them. Ethan's rifle roared, bullets splitting the morning air. He dragged Ahyoka behind a boulder, heart pounding. "Run," he barked. But she refused. "No, if we run forever, we'll never be free." The chase had ended. The storm was here. The canyon echoed with war cries. Dust rose as mounted warriors closed in, their faces painted, their arrows ready. Ethan stood tall, rifle in hand, his body shielding Ahyoka. "Ethan," she whispered, gripping his arm, "you don't have to do this. You'll die." He gave a small, reckless grin. "Then I'll die fighting." The battle exploded. Gunfire and arrows filled the air. Ethan dropped two riders before they reached the ridge. Ahyoka grabbed a fallen bow, loosing arrows with deadly precision. Side by side, they fought like one soul in two bodies. But numbers overwhelmed them. An arrow slashed Ethan's shoulder. He staggered, blood soaking his shirt. Then, from the chaos, a towering figure emerged. The war chief himself, the man Ahyoka had fled. His eyes burned with rage as he raised his tomahawk. "You are mine!" he roared at Ahyoka. She stepped forward, trembling but unyielding. "I am no man's possession. My spirit is free." The chief lunged. Ethan threw himself between them. The clash was brutal. Steel against steel, strength against desperation. Every blow shook Ethan's bones, every strike threatened to end him. But as the chief raised his weapon for the final strike, Ahyoka screamed and drove an arrow into his chest. Silence fell. The chief staggered, eyes wide, then crumpled to the dust. The remaining warriors froze, stunned. Without their leader, their fire died. One by one, they lowered their weapons and retreated into the shadows of the canyon. Ethan collapsed to his knees, bleeding, gasping. Ahyoka caught him, tears streaming. "Stay with me, please, don't leave me." He smiled faintly, brushing her cheek. "Guess we proved it. Hearts don't know borders." She pressed her forehead to his. In that moment, surrounded by death and silence, life burned brighter than ever. Days later, the sun rose over a small cabin by the river. Ethan, his wounds healing, stood on the porch. Ahyoka was beside him, her hand entwined with his. They had built something fragile, something dangerous, but something real, a love that defied worlds. And though the frontier still whispered of blood and betrayal, Ethan knew one truth. The day he saved her from drowning was the day he saved himself.